Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Ferris wheel. We are now in our third episode of season 2, and I'm just happy to say that we've evolved and our team has now become a permanent 3. So I'm one of your menaces, Ferris Kennedy, my partner in crime,
Stephen Wheeler,
and our newest addition,
Ian Clark. Make that Dr. Ian Clark.
musicologist. And from you listeners, obviously you knew that Dr. Clark was in a psychiatric ward. Well, the good news is he's been officially released.
It is official, thank you.
And unfortunate for Wheels and I, he is in our care custody. So, I actually put Wheels' address just in case anything happens.
and you have the calming drugs, right?
Yeah, you got those drugs, Ian?
I'm on an IV drip, actually, with most of them.
So, before we go any further, Ian, there was a story actually that came out in Rolling Stone magazine regarding you having a love affair with both Joan Jett and Deborah Herring.
Right.
This is true?
It is true, but not at the same time, and that's what people kind of get twisted up. I met Debbie Harry in in mid-'70s at CBGB's in New York. And Joan, of course, is with the Runaways. It was a different time period. So I just don't want people to say, God, this guy's two-timing. No. It was like linear. It was fine. It was separated by a matter of days. And I feel good about that.
Well, I'm happy to hear. So without further ado, let's get on to this show. What do you say, Wheels?
I think it's a great idea.
So what we're going to do is there was an article that came out, I believe it was from Ultimate Classic Rock. They came out with an article where they had 5 of their writers do this little project. And when I spoke to Wheels and Dr. Clark, they thought, hey, this would be a hell of a good project. So we did the project saying how would one of each of us create our own supergroup in the true meaning? So what we're going to do is, and the rules are very simple. You weren't allowed to duplicate any band members from your team. So if, let's say, Wheels took Frank Sinatra, I was not allowed to take Frank Sinatra. Let's say that Ian wanted to take Michael Jackson. Well, he couldn't have really taken Randy Jackson because they're also from the same band. So those are just examples. Now, just so you listeners know, none of those were even taken. Actually, I was kind of surprised that none of us actually even took Michael Jackson. But let's start off with the supergroup. So which one is going to go first? Should it be Wheels? Should it be Dr. Clark? What do you say?
Up to you guys.
All right, Mr. Clark, or Dr. Clark. Dr. Clark will go first. Then we'll give courtesy to Wheels to list his band. So you list, the way we're going to do this segment, you guys are going to list the roles that have been highlighted in black, courtesy of me. And then I will go last to just upset everybody because my voice is the most annoying. Go ahead, Dr. Clark.
Okay, thank you very much. Lead singer. Okay, the field is so open. There's about, 1,400 people that could fill this. I went for a guy that, in my mind, is not really questionable. And I put Rod Stewart because not only the history with like Lon John Baldry and the Faces, Stewart has an amazing rock and roll voice. It's one of those exciting voices, like Paul Rogers or something from Free. You hear it. He's perfect for rock and roll, and I would have him as the lead singer. Backup vocals. Okay, I put Steve Tyler mainly because of his range. People don't give Tyler credit for this range that he has. You try singing along with the average Aerosmith song. It's impossible. Plus, he looks the part. Guitarist. All right. Now, this is difficult because you can either be obscure or you can be super obvious. I was super obvious, and the reason I chose Jimi Hendrix is because for me, Hendrix has always been the most interesting guitarist. I don't even know if technically he was the best. I mean, guys like Jeff Beck or John McLaughlin, I don't know. For me, he was the most interesting, the stuff he did with an electric guitar. It was exciting, and it still is, listening to Hendrix. Lead guitarist. Okay, here's the name you're not going to hear that much about anymore, but in the 70s, this guy was hot stuff, and that's Rick Derringer. Rick Derringer's been around basically forever. He was with, what was the group in the 60s that did Hang On Sloopy? And the guy's been you know, he has deep roots in rock and roll. I know him from his Edgar Winter and the White Trash days. If you ever want to get a great live album, get Edgar Winter and the White Trash at, I guess, Whiskey A Go Go. It's absolutely stupendous. Everything's exciting about it. Great horns and great guitar. A lead guitar with Rick Derringer, who was in his prime. Rhythm, why not go for Jeff Lynne? Jeff Lynne of ELO. Jeff Lynne is underappreciated. Most of the great ELO songs, which we term great, the greatest hits, have a strong driving rhythm to it. Lynne's not doing a lot of lead. If he does the lead, I'd call it a George Harrison lead. It's more kind of melodic than it is technically brilliant, like a Clapton or a Jeff Beck. He keeps a strong beat. He knows how to move a band. Bass, a lot of guys. I went obvious just to draw attention to Paul McCartney. Okay, everyone's groaning. Paul McCartney. Yeah, well, Paul McCartney made songs like Come Together and Ballad of John and Yoko. Great hits. He brought them out of mediocrity. He's a very clever bass player. When you listen to stuff like Obla Dee or even more complicated stuff off Beatles albums and after the Beatles, he comes through. He thinks it out, and I want to leave him in that band. Drums. The guy I'm going to mention now probably hated rock and roll. He hated everything, and that's Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich was known as the greatest drummer in the world. This is in the 70s. In the early 80s, too. He was untouchable. He was the drummer god, and a really super unpleasant guy. And in fact, there's this tape, it might be on YouTube now, of him chewing out one of his band members, and he's a vicious guy. But Buddy Rich kind of took over where Gene Krupa left off, and he was incredible. Go to YouTube, find Buddy Rich video, and stand back. He's just unbelievable. Piano, the late, great Leon Russell. Okay, Leon Russell, is one of these guys, if you go over albums in the late 60s and in the 70s, he's on a lot of them playing keys. Plus, he wrote great songs. Who did he play with? Let's think about Joe Cocker, Delaney and Bonnie, Beach Boys, Elton John, Bob Dylan, Frank Sinatra, Rolling Stones, George Harrison, The Byrds, The Band, then Campbell, Barbra Streisand, Eric Clapton. This guy's everywhere. And they asked him to be in the band because he's a great band player. He's not going to take over. In fact, he led the infamous Mad Dogs and Englishmen for Joe Cocker. He put that band together. He was the band leader. Keyboard. This one for me was obvious, and that's Ray Manzarek of The Doors. No Ray Manzarek, no Doors. I know Jim Morrison's out there. He's front. He's the cult figure. But Ray Manzarek gave it that kind of otherworldly sound he had a Vox organ. And the Doors didn't have a bass player, so he would play the bass with the left hand. It's a very interesting setup with the Doors had. And Manzarek was a great arranger. So Robbie Krieger can come in with a song like Light My Fire, and Manzarek throws Bach on the front of the song. He was an interesting guy that way. Again, kind of a hard to get along with guy, but he was one half, what should I say, of the Doors. The other half being, of course, Morrison. Saxophone. Does the name Bobby Keys mean anything to our listeners? Bobby Keys, the late Bobby Keys, this guy learned rock and roll in a band with Buddy Holly. Can you get more roots than that? One of the originators of electric rock and roll music, Buddy Holly. Bobby Keys was played with him. Now, this guy was around for about 40 years, mostly with the Rolling Stones. And you can hear him on some of the great Stones songs like Brown Sugar or something. He's really smoking it. And he's a great rock and roll sax player, much missed. Gentlemen, that's my roundup for what I would consider an outstanding band. With this proviso, if you threw all these guys in a room, I don't know what would happen, because half of them are really egomaniacs. They're real, swans. But if you could get them to work together, it would be technically an outstanding band.
Well, that's a very interesting band. I can actually say, personally myself, I've seen 3 of those guys live. Wheels?
Unfortunately, I haven't been that lucky.
Well, you weren't missing much on one of them, but it's... no offense to Leon Russell, but his concert was a little bit of a snore fest. But I guess that was when he finished releasing that album with Elton John.
Well, Leon Russell wasn't really known for live performance. He didn't do a lot of dry ice and cartwheels. I mean, he was a studio musician.
So round 2. Round 2 will be me, Stephen Wheeler. So we'll go with lead singer. I went with the ultra obvious, in my case, Freddie Mercury. And the reason is relatively simple, is the sheer range of his voice. The man is legendary for, I don't know how many octaves he was able to rise within.
At least 3.
At least 3. I mean, the guy could sing anything from the softest song to high-flying opera, for God's sakes. Mm-hmm. So you can't really go wrong with Freddie. So that's one. So backup vocals. I put the boss. The man is legendary. So Bruce Springsteen is a powerful voice, both as a lead or a backup. He has lots of raw emotion, which, I mean, that's the kind of thing you know instinctively. It's not something you learn at school. And he's proved it for the last, 40 years. And he continues to rock it out with the best of them. Even if the voice is maybe not as powerful as it once was. So then we go to lead guitarist. Sorry, guitarist. So guitarist, of course, again, went with the super obvious, Prince. Why Prince? Well, amazing virtuosity, and the man's a legend. So he could basically do anything he wanted or put his mind to, and I mean, even dead, he's going to surprise us because there's a huge vault of his stuff in Minneapolis, which is still unreleased. And, well, chances are there is some crap in there, but it's probably also full of masterpieces we have yet to hear. Then I went for my lead guitarist with Neil Young. For those times where you need a guy to do some folk, country, and rock, and he's pretty much always there for you. I mean, it's Neil Young. Also, if you're in Canada, it gives you your Canadian content. So the next one is my rhythm guitar mixed with vocals. So when Freddie's a little tired and Bruce no longer has a voice, you can always count on Bryan Adams. Why? Because you need a voice like Adams to accompany Freddie in the operatic moments. Because he has that low, growly, raspy voice, and you'll strum a few chords and you'll get the crowd's attention. So, I mean, booyah. So then we go to the bass guitar, and if I say geezer, what do you say?
Old guy.
Old guy. Well, in this case, it's not too far from the truth. So Geezer Butler, because Geezer knows how to riff like no one's business. Because, I mean, he's Black Sabbath. The man created a musical genre almost by himself. Like, I'm not shitting on Ozzy, but let's face it, without Geezer, Ozzy would just be another voice, and we would not have heavy metal as it is today. So next is drums. So that one, I went a little left field, and Art Blakey. So those of you who are not jazz fans probably have never heard of Art Blakey, but in the 40s, he was known for drumming as the band leader for Fletcher Henderson, and I mean, for 50 years, the man was just insane. He can play pretty much anything, and the man had rhythm, and he had energy, and I don't think anybody in rock, except maybe a few, could actually hold a candle to the man. So Art Blakey on the drums. Next piano, Ray Charles. Why Ray Charles? Well, Brother Ray could basically do anything and everything. We know that at the beginning of his career, actually, one of his many talents was actually to be able to sound like anybody else. So if you have Ray Charles, you have pretty much everybody in the music business with you in the room. So let's go with Ray Charles on the piano. On keyboard, Rami Jaffe. So the man has been with the Wallflowers for close to 20 years. He was from the 90s to 2013, and he's been a key Foo Fighter for a few years. And he's worked with so many big names, including Soul Asylum and Peter Yorn and a few others. And for those moments where you actually need an accordion, although I don't know why you would, but the man can actually play it too. So he's always there when you need some help.
I don't know if you want to do a wedding, you know.
Exactly.
Yeah, or if you're at like some sort of Italian function, that's the way I would see it.
Exactly.
Exactly.
So if there's ever a mob boss who feels romantic, you've got Rami Jaffe to help you out.
Get me, Rami.
And then trumpet, well, I mean, again, you can't really escape the man, Miles Davis. He's the most influential and acclaimed figure in the history of jazz and 20th century music. He had vision. And basically, if you ever listen to his albums, you always heard basically what everybody else would do in 10 years. So as a horn player, can you take anybody but Miles Davis?
I'm just going to toss in, you wouldn't want Miles Davis in your band, though.
Well, actually, none of these guys would work well together when you think about it.
He was a dreadful man. He was just awful, a toxic guy. And God help you if you're in the same room, let alone the same band. You know, later Miles, like everything from Bitches Brew Up, you keep away from that guy. Earlier stuff, he's probably okay. But man, I read a bio. He's a horrible man. So you're right. Like this is, again, to the listeners, this is just an ideal, if there's a rock and roll heaven type of band, because these guys together would probably have a blood fest. They're just, you know, they're not wired for it.
No, it's nitroglycerin, like all these
Yeah.
guys.
I've seen 3 on your list, by the way.
Well, Ryan Adams.
6 times I've seen him. Yeah. I missed out on Neil Young. I had to give those tickets to my parents. But
Because you're a good son.
well, I had a freaking other function I had to go to, couldn't get out of. Oh, man, I was mad. So that's one hell of an interesting band on both of you. And actually, I'm disappointed in Ian. You didn't take Sonny Charles as your singer.
Listen, I'm going to give you a bit of Neil Young here. Okay, because you guys are just, here's some Neil Young by way of SCTV, okay?
Oh, Jesus.
Let's see if I can remember it. Hang on, guys. I heard you knocking on my cellar door. I love you, baby, can I have some more? Gone, gone, the damage done. I called up Crosby and I called up Nash. I said, hey, can you sell me some hash? Gone, gone, the damage done. It's an interlude.
This is awesome. You mean to tell me fans would not want this as a morning show? You mean to tell me no one would want the Ferris wheel show as a morning crew? You got Kennedy, Wheeler, Clark. Clark's like and then Clark could do the news and tell you it's gonna be like, you know, plus 35 with a humid X of 48, you know?
It doesn't matter. You're all going to die one day. The point being, download the podcast and listen to it in the morning.
There you go.
Morning, noon, and night.
So now we're at to my super group, and this one here was very tough. When we did the little assignment, of course, Wheels decided to not read it properly, and he's blaming his email, and then Dr. Clark decided to take 2 people from the same band. So for those of you, just so you know, he kicked out John Lennon, okay?
Thanks very much.
So what I did was for my singers, and I had a hard time with this one, but then it was pretty well a no-brainer. I was kind of battling with Chris Cornell, Springsteen, Mercury, Bryan Adams, Lane Staley, Patrick Stump, Cobain, Plant, Wayland, and Lynn. And I said, nah, if I really have a super group, it's no other than Eddie Vedder. And like I said, it was very hard, but how can you not want Eddie Vedder to be your lead singer? The man has incredible range. His enunciation when he screams is just right off the walls. And to me, I think he shows a lot of passion whenever he sings all the songs. Obviously, a lot of them do have personal experience, so there is a huge advantage to that. But at the end of the day, even if you'd write a song for him, we'd probably laugh at your face, but at the end of the day, he would still sing with that emotion. For backup vocals, I went with Stephen Page. Stephen Page, in my point of view, can belt out a note from yards away. He knew how to take it to the next level and has proven to the world that he was Bare Naked Ladies. And if you look at it now, none of the songs sound the same without him. Mind you, he has built up a very, very nice solo career, and he keeps moving it forward. So in my popular opinion, if Bare Naked Ladies, or BNL as they go by now, they want to be ever popular again and taste some success, just bring him back. There's a lot of talks, I think, that they are going to bring him back. You got one band member saying no, the other three are saying yes. He's just a drummer. The one that said no, so just get rid of him. Who cares? So that's my opinion. So now for guitarist, and for those of you that know me very well, obviously Slash, it was a no-brainer for me, and I'm sure when I sent that email out, Wheels is like, yeah, I get it. And then Dr. Clark's like, interesting. So for me, Slash being part of Guns N' Roses, or is actually Guns N' Roses, he's also part of Miles Kennedy and the Conspirators. He actually was listed in the top 5 guitar riffs of all time with Hendrix, Satriani, Steve Vai, and Santana. All those guys actually hang out with Ian Clark about a couple of years ago before they decided to say bye-bye. Except for Hendrix, yeah. So Slash has been around, and also for those of you that were huge Michael Jackson fans and still are, Slash toured with Michael Jackson for the longest time. For the lead guitarist, I went with Keith Scott. He's been with Bryan Adams since the beginning. They've never left each other's side. He has been lead on numerous hits that a lot of people don't know. He's also quietly developed a nice solo career. And for you WWE fans, that movie that he did, the Bret Hart movie regarding the whole behind the scenes with Vince McMahon and the Bret Hart story, he did actually the theme song for that one. So I guess it's a nice little Canadian content, right? For going with rhythm guitarist, and Ian, I don't know if I surprised you with this one, but I took Kim Thale from Soundgarden. And just so you know that Kim Thale could also play the mandolin and a bass guitar, just in case my next bassist that I'm going to mention gets tired, okay? So for the bassist, I went with Steve Harris from Iron Maiden. I've seen Iron Maiden twice. Steve Harris has been there since 77. Bruce Dickinson came on in 80, I think, 80 or 81. Steve Harris, it was an article that I had read back in the day. I believe it was Rolling Stone that wrote it. I could be wrong, but he was acclaimed as one of the best in music history for being the bassist. Obviously, on the metal aspect, Ian, I'm not going to debate saying he was better than Paul McCartney, but I think the time when the metal came around, actually, you could probably beat up Paul McCartney, so let's just leave it at that.
That's not very nice to say.
Drums. Well, David Grohl, part of Nirvana, lead singer and creator of Foo Fighters. Initially was a drummer, can still smash them, and made Taylor Hawkins his protege, and success was created. So I'm lucky on this one because if Slash gets tired, then David Grohl can go play guitar. If Steve Harris is not around, David Grohl can play the bass. There's many things that David Grohl can't do. So that's why I chose my drummer. Piano, and this one here, Ian, I think when I sent this one to you, kind of said, okay, yeah. Paul Merkovich. Did a lot of work with Whitesnake and Foreigner, also toured with Cher, and now he's the house band leader for The Voice, the TV show. And in my honest opinion, Ian, I don't know if you want to agree with me, I think he's just very underrated.
Yeah, what I mean, you notice the list too is I made the point, I guess, a few days ago. Your list I would call much heavier than mine.
Yes.
The benefits, most of your guys are alive, okay? Most of my guys, as I look over, have left the planet. There are a few exceptions, like Rick Derringer, Rod Stewart, Steve Tyler, I guess, is hanging on, and Jeff Lynne, but half of them are gone. So, I'd rather live in the present. Thank God for recorded music, but you're not going to see, Buddy Rich anytime soon.
Well, that's why for keyboards, I went a different angle from you guys. I went with Alicia Keys. Okay.
Oh, well, yeah, okay.
So obviously, considering she's very attractive, she's also a classically trained pianist and was composing since the age of 12. Enough said, she is brilliant, in my opinion. And also, by chance, if Paul Merkovich has other commitments, well, Alicia could fill in. And then for my wind instrument, I chose the saxophone. I went with Trent Reznor from Nine Inch Nails. Trent can play numerous wind instruments, which include the saxophone, pan flute, sousaphone, and a tuba. He could also play a cello, harp, piano, synthesizer, and a pump organ, just in case my piano guy is ill. All right, you like that one? You like that one?
You're playing on a lot of illness.
Yeah, wow.
Like,
you're talking. But I'll tell you one thing: my guy that plays a wind instrument could kick the crap out of your two guys' wind instrument and probably half of your bands.
Probably
considering
they
ours
could.
are worm food.
Yeah, I know. These guys are just rolling with the maggots. So I would
That'd be a
agree
good song,
with
though. Actually, rolling with the maggots.
Rolling with the maggots.
So you find mine is much heavier, Dr. Clark?
It's heavier. It's this. If you want to go, I could spice mine a bit. I had a lead guitarist, Randy Rhoads. Now, Randy Rhoads, you don't hear the name because he is deceased at the age of 25 with a bizarre spinal tapion accident involving a biplane. But there's a really cool video on YouTube where Ozzy Osbourne's listening to a track he never heard, isolated, of Randy Rhoads, just doodling in the studio. He's brilliant. This guy could have really developed into something special. But there you go. I check out that YouTube video. It is touching because he died when he was in Ozzy's band, but he was a great guitarist, Randy Rhoads.
There's a few of them that I think, like I said, it was a hard exercise. I don't know, Wheels, how you found it. I found it pretty hard because, there's also Steve Stevens that could have been out there as a guitarist, right? He's been by Billy Idol's side since the beginning. So there's a whole bunch of them.
Oh, yeah.
So it's...
if you asked me tomorrow, I would change. It'd probably be a new list. But as I sat writing this, I thought, yeah, sure, Rod Stewart, great guitarist. I was tempted with Paul Rogers, as I said, for Free. What a great kind of very masculine kind of Roger Daltrey type of singing, like full gonzo singing. And but I didn't. So this often is when you're asked what kind of mood you're in, you know what I mean? If I was asked tomorrow, I probably wouldn't put Buddy Rich. But I just watched a Buddy Rich video, and I'm always stunned at how good he was. I saw Buddy Rich in concert. Again, not the greatest guy. You probably wouldn't want to know him, but he's just so good. And so there you go.
Okay, so Dr. Clark, he said he'd probably change his list. Wheels?
I agree with him in the sense that I think your mood does influence quite a lot of your decisions. In my case, I mean, I went back and forth for singer. I went back and forth for keys. It's just, it depends on your mood. It depends, like, am I in a heavy mood, light mood?
Yeah, that's a great point.
Well, I'll be honest. I don't think I would change my list. Even at the piano part, I thought, would I really put Elton John? And then you got a whole bunch of freaking egos definitely in that room there. I'm actually very content with my list. I was actually happy with my list. I checked it twice, and I knew who was naughty and who was nice.
Right.
And I don't think I would change anything on my list. No, I think the Alicia Keys, I threw everybody off on that one because it's
Yeah, I mean, you really committed left Alicia Keys. Yeah, sure.
but she's good.
Yeah, again, she does a really interesting version, because I mentioned Ray Manzarek. Find her version of Light My Fire. You will never hear a more... She's a great version of that, and she has a great version of Black Magic Woman, which is sensual, would be the word. Who knew? But she does them live. And, she understands how music works. And but you don't see enough of her. You see her in a lot of talk shows. So I hope she gets back to being... in my opinion, I'm probably a more serious musician, but she is quite attractive. So she could do a few things besides the piano.
Well, we had a lot of people ask me if we had a thing, so I'm just gonna leave it at that. Like Ian would say, right?
Yeah,
she's a great gal.
No, I did hear about you guys in New York City a few years ago, and I know you're married, so let's. But you weren't at the time. I want to put that in there.
There you go. I was not at the time. I was a bachelor. That's
bachelor.
right.
Well, next week you were married.
Okay. Yeah. I needed to wrap it up, Wheels.
Okay, so this was basically our supergroup in a sense, the supergroup ideal. I think Dr. Clark and I see it more as a general list, whereas I think we would have supergroups for metal, for prog, for all the different.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I'd like a super prog group. That'd be good.
That's awful. I hate you both right now.
Keith Emerson keyboards. Yeah.
You want Geddy Lee on bass?
Exactly.
Oh yeah, and Depeche Mode, the singer.
God, no.
No? All right.
I'm not a Depeche.
There was I'll mention a Righteous Brothers hit. I think the last hit from 70-something. I think it's called Rock and Roll Heaven. And it is indescribably morbid and maudlin. But if you go through it, the lyrics are interesting because they will, at that point, they reflect on something we're going to talk about shortly called the 27 Club. But they'll talk about Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin. It's really interesting. The whole idea, if there's a rock and roll heaven, I know they've got a hell of a band. Like, it is so maudlin. And I think it was their last hit. I'm going to say 74-ish.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
Well, on that note, I'd like to sign off. So I'm one of your threes, Ferris Kennedy.
Stephen Wheeler.
And Dr. Ian Clark.
Thank you for listening, and you'll listen to us next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.